So one thing that made one of the biggest differences in my life and in my business was when I started surrounding myself with, more successful people and really elevating my kind of network and people I surround myself with. And one of the things I'm most grateful for is the fact that I have a friendship group of guys that are absolutely crushing it in life and in business and get to travel around the world and meet all of these amazing people. And it's one of the most common questions I get is, how do you elevate your network? How do you surround yourself with better people? And it's a pain point for a lot. So I just wanted to share 4 things that I've learned that have helped me kind of improve the people I surround myself with. And this is coming from someone that back when I was at school, I wasn't one of these cool kids. I didn't really have, many friends or cool friends at all. And I wanted to be surrounded by kind of the cool kids, but, I was just one of these dorks that really wasn't that guy. The first thing that's kind of really worked for me, and the first kind of piece of advice I give to people is, you have to focus on yourself first in order to become more valuable so that you can attract better people into your life rather than having to chase people. And what I mean by that is people think, I want to go out, I want to start networking and I want to start surrounding myself and meeting better people. But ultimately, like with anything in life, you have to focus on yourself first and you have to become more valuable. And so kind of off camera just before, I was speaking with Ollie behind the camera, and we're at a point now we just bought kind of a property deal together. It's about £500,000, £600,000 property deal. He's traveling around the world with me, meeting all these cool people, and Ollie had one of his friends reach out to him and kind of say, how are you doing this? They went to school with each other, and he kind of reverse engineered the process. And what was obvious to me, and we spoke at length about, was how Ollie became valuable in terms of leveled up his skills, in terms of how to kind of create content, be behind a camera. And then through that, previously started kind of going on holiday with a lot of footballers and capturing their content, and then eventually reached out to me, and now obviously we do all this cool stuff together. And so, and a good analogy is also with dating. If you want to attract a high value male or female partner into your life, I always use the example, what's better? Is it better to spend 2 hours a day swiping on Tinder? Or is it better to spend that 2 hours going to the gym for an hour and working on yourself, and then spending another hour doing some personal development, whether it's reading a book, listening to podcasts, improving your mindset? And if you think 2 people, one doing each, over a 5-10 year time horizon, one's going to be the point where maybe they've gone on a lot of dates from Tinder, but haven't really found a high value partner, whereas one is going to be in great shape, has a lot of wisdom, great mindset, and they're going to be in a position, really wealthier, so they're going to be in a position where they're going to attract a better partner into their life. And it's the same in business. If you want to get a better job, if you want to be paid more, you have to become more valuable. And one of the number one ways to become more valuable is to kind of improve your skill sets, to build a business. And the reason that then attracts better people into your life is because you've got to think, successful people want to surround themselves with other successful people. And there's levels to that. You look at billionaires. I'm not in a position where I have any billionaires in my immediate friendship group. In my group chat of boys, unfortunately, there's no billionaires in there. But billionaires, friends with billionaires, and they know other billionaires, and they go on holidays with other billionaires. And so the more successful you become, naturally, the more successful people you kind of elevate into your life. And there's going to be some people watching this and think, well, that's a very transactional view of relationships. But ultimately, that's what relationships are. There has to be kind of a fair exchange of value. And that doesn't just mean, make a load of money and we're going to have loads of great friends. I'm talking about building authentic, deep relationships with people. And, part of that is sharing the same values, sharing the same traits and principles that you live by. But when you are a man of principles and you have kind of these things that you live by and these values, then you're going to attract people that share those same values. And so the number one thing you can do is just focus on yourself, become more valuable. And the second way to attract better people into life is to really focus on building a personal brand. Something I talk a lot about in a few recent videos is the importance of having a brand, because you need people to know who you are. And I think about a lot of kind of the friendships that I've formed, I'm kind of grateful to have. And a lot of new friendships I make, every week, every day, is they originate from online. They originate from social media, because they see what I'm doing, I see what they're doing. I'm like, hey, you're doing cool stuff. They see me like, hey, you're doing cool stuff. Like, cool, let's connect. Let's get to know each other. Let's go for a coffee. Let's go for dinner. I see we've got a few mutual friends. Let's go for a group dinner together. And so if you're not online, if you're not kind of building a personal brand, it's going to be very hard for you to create those relationships. So if you follow step one, start to become more valuable, build a business, start to actually create something of value, and then you're documenting that online and you're building a personal brand around that, you're going to begin to attract other people on a similar journey to you. The third thing is sometimes in life it's pay to play. You've got to pay to get in the room with great people, and there's various different ways you can do this. One is you can kind of attend networking events where you go to these networking events, whether it's property or business. So you're going to meet and make more meaningful relationships at networking events than you are going down to the pub on a Friday night to Wetherspoons or whatever. You're trying to meet a load of losers. The other thing you can also do is mastermind groups. I pay, for example, a lot of money every year and every month to be part of a mastermind group where we meet up once a month with like the top 20 or so developers under the age of 35, property developers, where combined in the room, the total room is doing something like hundreds of millions worth of deals, like £500 million worth of property development deals. And you can imagine the conversations in that room. And when I first joined, conversations are just on a whole other wavelength. And by paying to be part of that group, I've built the friendships and relationships that I'm very grateful to have, that of course allowed me to grow a business because I'm learning from them, and likewise I'm sharing advice with them with what's working for me as well. And also when it comes to pay to play, one of the things you probably want to do is you want to move to a city which is going to be more expensive. I know there's going to be a lot of people watching this, and recently at the mastermind I did in Dubai, of course that was an incredibly inspiring environment. Dubai is one of the most inspiring cities in the world, where there's just so much abundance of wealth, and it's hard not to be inspired. There were guys that came on the mastermind that never been to Dubai before, maybe only been to London once in their life, but they live up north, maybe in Lancashire or Lincolnshire, where they're just surrounded by fields and sheep. It's going to be very difficult for you to make meaningful connections because you're just not in proximity with these key people. So the fourth thing that I've done that has worked for me is I moved to London. I'm not from London, and living here, I live in this beautiful apartment which costs me something crazy. It cost me £6,000 per month, which is a lot of money, but that's a price I'm prepared to pay to be in proximity with more successful people. Because every city, whether it's London, Dubai, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and all across the world, these cities are hubs for successful people and entrepreneurs. That's where the money is. And so by living here, I get to meet loads of incredible people. Even just a friend of mine that I met living in this building that lives a few floors above me, someone I consider now a very close friend, and his brand new Ferrari is parked outside. He's someone that sold his previous business for multi-8 figures. He's building an incredible business now, and we have some of the most incredible conversations where I learn so much speaking to him. I'd like to think, and he's told me that he learns a lot from the conversations we have together, and that's a friendship I'm very fortunate to have. And the list goes on and on and on. Some of the investors that I have in one of the real estate deals I've recently done, where I'm putting none of my own money in, is being funded by a private investor that I met living in this building that is just a private lender for real estate deals. And so by living in a city, you can build these friendships that you wouldn't get elsewhere. So there are a few things that have worked for me. So if you want to elevate your social circle, become more valuable so you can attract, you don't have to chase. 2, build a personal brand so other people can see what you're doing and connect with you. Number 3, be prepared to pay to play. And number 4, change your environment, because your environment is everything. You follow the money.